Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Pascal Petit.
Okay. I am very impressed by the audience, but as you can see with the title, it's more kind of addressed to maybe academic or people much engaged, and I have a much more broader audience, which is very pleasing in itself. And I must say I feel confident after the presentation that I've been given, especially the one on pragmatism, no ideology. And it's so close that I could say, I sign, and that's finished, that's over. I will not. I will try to expand a bit beyond, but this kind of agreement with this posture is for me very important. At a time where economics has been doing not so well as a whole discipline, it was very important for me to have, as I understand it, a comprehension of economics as a social science, that is to say, looking at what the sociologist, the anthropologist, psychologist, and history is telling. And that will be part of the echo that you will have in my presentation. I have many slides, we have little time, I will skip some of them. Don't worry, there is nothing bad in them. You could see them afterward to stress more some point in this introduction. Does it work? I can't see the oh, yeah. Anyway, this pointer is a bit difficult to see. No. I was just trying to point at some words in the title. I was still at the first page. Okay. Diversity, capitalism. I understood from the press conference, but also from some debates with our colleagues, that capitalism has become maybe even a strange word in the main field of economics. It is not a strange word. It is a world which can be reflected upon, which we can duly relate to our history, and our long history, even so. And it has its legitimacy as long as we understand it as something where you have on one side effectively public intervention, a state of affairs, politics and all that, and markets. But what we got wrong in the process of many economic discourse is some kind of reification of markets. A market is a social construct exactly as the state is. That means that we have to discuss how market is regulated, which gives a sense to this regulation theory. Everything's human productions, and we have to assume it. We have to assume that markets are not categories per se, but are social constructs that have to be discussed. Same thing for the states, and that's how I understand very well your government-linked companies, which means that you have a kind of mixed hybridation, which are very important. So if we broaden the scope of capitalism as we do, the problem is that we have too many kinds, and we don't know how to put them to work efficiently at various stages of our development. That's also the big point, stage of development. History matters. I will say that institution matters, but history matters as well. It means that the world of today is rather different of the world of, I would say, yesterday. We can make a more subtle periodization, as you know, but the world of today is also different from the world before the last global financial crisis. It's also very different from the world where capitalism kind of renew from its ashes in the post-World War II. I like a quotation that you all know, roughly the quotation is Kaleski one. Either capitalism will have to ensure full employment, or it will have to be scrapped. And that is the kind of motto of the big change that happened in the post-war period. A lot of things are ensuing. What does it say? It says that you need some kind of broad convention on the principle on which this capitalism should act in all its principles. The thing is that time is changing, conventions are eroding, and when we come here as a European, for example, we don't have a lesson to give. We have also a lesson to take. It's a kind of exchange, and it was very clear in your exposé, and that's effectively what I like in it. The world has changed. It's the world of today. We need to change of experience, and I will try in going through all these slides in the 3 hours that I have to make my presentation. It has gone. Sorry, can you? Yeah, just 1 minute. No, after all, I will still go through my slides a bit. If you can help me. They are lost. You have my portrait in the plan. That's a personalization, which is... Let's go back to this black and white sample. Just to help. Okay. Okay. Sorry, is there a problem? I can, no? Okay. I will just, you try to solve and I will go. I will just give, if only, first of all, a general outline of my presentation. So if by any chance the organizer, and I thank them for this invitation, if they try to restrict my 3 hours, you will know the kind of argument. My presentation, to begin with, this institution matters, and we have to deal with the diversity of institutional background in all the countries. And that's a lesson that comes after the glorious years of capitalism. It's not my say, it's not the say of the regulation school, but it's the say of American researchers to characterize the years 45, 75. These were the glorious years of capitalism. In other way, you can see it as it is past and now we have the bad years, and I don't think it's that. I think it's we had found the way to have an active period where things were more or less benefiting all the partners with their convention and institution. It has been eroded, times had changed. You spoke of the famous end of the Bretton Woods Agreement, and then we realized that over these 30 periods, the countries, the various countries, the trade partners, the countries within the European Union, which existed from the very, very aftermath of World War II for good reason, peace. Thank you, we are back. But we are not back at the good page. Hola. That was an interesting one, but I kept it for... Let me... It's not very sensitive, but... Okay. Voila, here we are. So you have the resume of what I was saying. So my first part will be this assessment that institutions matter and the diversity of the European countries also. That is to say that when we meet a big crisis, that the one of the end of the Bretton Woods kind of government of the Western world, then we realize that one medicine does not fit all. You need to adjust to the specificity of each country and I will come back on each country, you have to adjust the remedies. The policies have to be specifically designed. That's the first part of my argument. The second part of my argument considers the period after the 70s. What happened to get out of this, not dead hand, but of this pause in the dynamic of the post-war capitalism? What has happened in this period is that the wage-labor relationship has evolved. The world has changed also. A lot of benefits of this first part of the capitalism. But it did not match anymore for various reasons that are well studied within the orthodox school or heterodox school for this crisis. But to get out of that, for things that I will not explain in detail, we tend to go towards a one motto: market liberalization will do the trick for everyone, without any other say. Just market liberalization will do the trick. It is a kind of already insisted on the fact that this reification of market is killing. You forget that it is a social contract. You can play with models, but you are living the reality, a big bifurcation. You are considering that market is a supply and demand. It's much more complex. Look at the anthropologue on the market, wherever. Have a realistic look on markets. You have all markets in everyday life. They are all organized on different patterns, brought by history, brought by crisis, changing with events and all that. So this second period has been totally blocked in a way, or derailing because of this motto, unique motto, to solve the things we have. Even this good old European Union has been derailed by that, because it started to say one remedy, liberalization fit all. We are going to take rules in that, losing all the advantage and lessons that they could have taken of the variety of capitalism, the fact that these countries were different and could also adjust, but in ways which needed to be much more looked at seriously. So my second point is institutions think and evolve or play differently. Institutions think is a reflection of Mary Douglas. It's not both an economist and an anthropologist, thinking of how it evolved. What is institution? I will come back on that, but the structural form, what we refer globally as institution, are all the codification of conduct. There are things where sometimes they are very deliberative. You can do or do not. It's not always compelling to follow what this. It evolves along times. It adjusts to some situation. Sometimes it adjusts through little crisis. You have a little crisis because some institutions need some updating. Sometimes you have relatively big crisis. That's a common way in which the world is working. And on that, and I will try to illustrate this part 2, I come to the part 3, institutional adjustment to face, we are back. I have done something wrong? Well, anyway, it will come back. You will have not this guy, but okay. Capitalism. Maybe I should not touch this one, yes? I can go on, okay. The problem is I have many slides, and if it's so difficult with one, we may have some problem. It's to face the challenge of globalization. This is a period that follows 2007 GFC, Global Financial Crisis. And if I may say so, a big bravo to Malaysia, who has helped to preserve East Asia from this 2007 crisis, taking the lesson of 1997. And this is very important, and we have to keep that in mind. So you had only the second wave, the indirect effect of this global financial crisis. The global financial crisis can be seen as not as a shock, but as a progressive derailment. One size fits all, liberalize, liberalize. If you say that, the car industry will liberalize, that's obvious. But the finance industry can take enormous advantage of that. It can be very fluid, it can globalize much more rapidly. If you remember in the 80s, in the second phase, in the 80s, there was a populist backing for this liberalization, a populist backing by people in favor of consumers, like, what's the name, Nadar in, anyway, Nader, Ralph Nader. There was a consumerist thing. The idea was what? We are very productive. We can have plenty of goods. Let's look at what the consumer needs and adapt to that. And the consumer will kind of, unfortunately, the world did not go that direction. It could have. With the technology we have, with the platform, demand can lead the thing. If you take care of what they are doing. Anyway, this turn has been defeated. It is not a turn towards the well-being of consumers, but finance took over. But finance took over because there was no other action. And there was a rationale for finance to take over. And the rationale for finance to take over was a Schumpeterian one. Well, those who do not know Schumpeter, we have two main, among others, two main figures. Keynes on one side, Schumpeter on the other, not opposing them. But Schumpeter is a man who insisted on innovation. And effectively, when I say that the world is changing, it's also changing because mankind has a capacity to innovate, which is fantastic. And it's like the big box. But it has to be rain or it derail. It has to be, that's what's all about institution and market construction. You have to anticipate, and it's not that obvious. I already criticized the gig economy and Uber and all that. It's not as easy as that to anticipate where it is going. But the idea of Schumpeter was that growth was driven by innovative people, entrepreneurs, and the finance was there to select the project. This is a good project, we have to finance it. This is not a good project, we won't finance it. Finance, a liberalized finance, has not been able to do that. Not been able to do that. Why? Because science and innovation is a complex story. It is not to a banker to tell you or to tell which is a good invention. We are much more elaborate than that, much more elaborate. Science is much more elaborate. They were not, for example, they know, only in one field do they know that they cannot select the good issue, nuclear. Finance did not go in the nuclear. But they try in some places, especially in ICTs, to enter the game. But even in ICTs, information and communication technology, the game was too tricky for them because it was too much of a long-term perspective for finance, when you could speculate, and speculate in the short term, making fancies, selling them and all that. So obviously, in this Schumpeterian finance, there was a bias that could not be controlled at the stage in which it developed. So in this liberalization period, finance took over, and we had 97 in East Asia, because some people were speculating on Bangkok from New York, not knowing what was going on. And simply, the thing in speculating is you speculate on the ignorance of others without any boundary to that. So that can lead to derailment for sure. And the second was 2001. Very important 2001 compared to what I just said. Why? Because in 2001, which is the collapse of the dot-coin economy, the financial sector realized that there are no means to kind of forecast or have a long, medium-term view of what was going on in this industry. And they simply quit. They quit in what sense? How can you see that empirically? Look at the VC industry, venture capital industry. They move away, and they move in a field where they can know what's going on, that is to say, financial innovation. But financial innovation, by definition, is the place where you have a lot of speculative possibilities, and at the end of the day, it led to 2007, which a lot of people, for all those that are interested, was well known by 2004 and 2005. It was obvious that the financial world was a bit crazy, going completely amok, and that we were running more and more risk and systemic risk. So if you want, there is an investigation in the US by the Federal Bank and all that, which is very clear about where it was and when it took place. And it's, it's a sad story in the construction of a market. The construction of the market of finance had not been monitored, mastered, managed at all. And if only for a good reason, partly this globalization, which tended to be difficult. So, to come to my third point, and you will tell me the time because it's the first of 35 minutes. 5 minutes, okay, so we may have to, anyway, but I will have to tell you the rationale for everything. The third point is what? What happened after the global GFC, financial crisis? The world changed rapidly, because in the meantime, I did not mention, but the second period is a period that is the equivalent of a decada perdida, a lost decade for the Western world, but the world changed all over. Malaysia is a good example. Trade developed more rapidly than GDP. At the end of the day, when the Western world goes out of the GFC, he found a world he found a world economy which has expanded quite a lot. And this world economy which has expanded quite a lot, which explains why I'm here, it imposed to look for a solution at a global level. It imposed to all countries, it imposed to Europe to enter this global governance. It imposed some kind of regional kind of thing. That's what I want to stress in my third part. But I will say also that it is difficult. Okay, it is difficult to address such a big question at the global level. How will you do that? How will you do that? I'm sure that my friend Sébastien will give you more detailed things in mastering that, how we do that and we reflect on that. But basically, we have the tools of analytics, but what is needed, what is important, what I want to stress is on what basis are we going to give some political legitimacy to a new global governance that could address and help all economy to work in ways which are cumulative, benefiting, I will say, a legitimate capitalism. To speak of a legitimate capitalism has to go through what a country thinks, what kind of political convention on which it is based. It was full employment in the post-war period. For a while, it has been for Europe the social Europe, and you know how the social Europe turned at the end in this world. Not being able of managing this diversity, as properly say, it turned into a kind of general recession, a blockage, and then a Brexit. So it's not at all a success, because most of the recipes of Europe for all this difficult time have been one size fits all, do some benchmarking, take take some limits to spending, to the debts which are the same all over the world. That does not exist. It's not the reality. You were rocking the boat. Doing that, you were rocking the boat of the European Union, and it sank. And it sank, and it did it in a very bad state for the time being. It had only one good point during all these things, I will say it frankly, that was the Kyoto Protocol. That was a very good point. That is to say, facing the challenge for this global world that we want to save, facing the deterioration of the environment and how to act upon it. But Kyoto came too soon. Europe made some good effort for Kyoto, but Kyoto was in the first phase of this challenge, and now the world was addressing it. Thanks for this talk. I think that we have observed that in December 2015, the odds have changed. The world is now in its all components thinking that it is a common issue. And it is in my interest, I find it rather interesting to think that we can have a kind of global convention for sustainable development that could play the role that at some point has played Full Employment Convention in the glorious year of capitalism. Capitalism can have also, can reconstruct a full legitimacy in taking very seriously this kind of arrangement. Why is it so? In my opinion, it is so because the fight on the environmental issue is not unidimensional. It concerns first, it has a local component, which is very important. The local democracy that acts, that is convinced. It has not to be top-down, uniquely top-down, it won't work. It has also to be bottom-up, which is very important. It addresses all sectors, and more important than that, we are entering a learning process by which each country defines, according to its diversity, the various steps it has to take, it can take, and all that. And it's still a process where there is some control, commitment, but it is not, as it is, and I am glad to speak when we have this Marrakesh meeting right now, COP22, I hope to see good news from that, a process which is a very positive one, whereby you take notice of the institutional diversity, to ask the country what they can do. They bring it home, they discuss it at all level, local, central, regional, professional, at all level, and then they come back and try to increase. And it becomes committing at some point, as you know. So it's a very positive way. Let's hope that European country, Malaysian and East Asian country can contribute in that direction.
Sorry,
That
Professor, we're really running way over time. Sorry to
Okay,
interrupt.
but I have finished my first page, so we can... Thank you all, and I will ask the organizer, whom I thank again for having invited me, to put on their website these 35 slides that you have not seen, but that I have resumed in due time. I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you very much.